Hello everyone, and welcome to the iMarq Summer Release webinar. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We're excited to show you some of the latest additions to iMarq and, more importantly, talk about why we built them. One thing we hear, consistently from organizations that perform their own work, their own maintenance, is that technology has to work for both sides of the operation. The technician standing next to the truck or the rail car, any piece of equipment for that matter, or any asset needs something that truly makes their life easier. And at the same time, the manager, reviewing the operation needs visibility into what's happening, what's getting done, and where attention is needed. Those two things should not have to compete with each other, and that idea is really at the center of what we're going to show you today. Technology that makes the work easier for the people doing it while creating better information for the people managing it. Now, before we jump in, let me quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Evan Ufkes, and I work here as an account executive at Connixt. A big part of my role is working directly with our customers and prospects across a ton of different maintenance environments. That really gives me an opportunity to see firsthand some of the challenges maintenance teams are dealing with, and how organizations are using iMarq to address them. And joining me here today is Prabu, our CTO and co-founder. Prabu obviously brings the technical side of the conversation and really has been the brains, in building iMarq and shaping how this platform is going. So throughout today's webinar, you'll hear from both of us. Prabu will take you deeper into the technology and our product vision, and I'll try to connect that back to what we're seeing and hearing from customers in the field. So with that, let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. As you can see, we have quite a bit to show you, but there are really three major additions we're going to focus on today. First is our new tires module, which gives maintenance teams full lifecycle visibility into their tires, position by position. Second is our new Isaac integration, which creates a closed loop behind a defect identified on the road, and the work ultimately gets completed in the shop. And third is Pinpoint inside iBot, which takes another big step forward in how we're applying AI to asset maintenance. And as we go through each one, we want to look beyond simply what the feature does. We want to look at what it means for the technician using it, what it means for the manager overseeing the operation, and ultimately what it means for the business. So to start us off, I'm going to hand it over to you, Prabu, and flip the slide.
Thanks, Evan. Nice meeting you all. Now, when it comes to product roadmap and what modules we are coming up with and all those things, right? We believe in organic growth. When I say organic growth, we listen to our customers, we listen to our prospects, we see how the field is performing, and then based on that, we introduce modules and product features and functionalities in the product, and we don't add anything just for the sake of technology. We only do it if there is a value add. So our key items when it comes to all these product roadmap items, right? Customer value comes first for us. When I say customer, it is customers and prospects. We hear to the field, like I mentioned earlier, and then we introduce the modules appropriately. And it is strategic, and it is also helping us in organic growth, like I mentioned earlier. Like, for example, Isaac integration. We are now we have now integrated with at least 6-7 of telematics platforms out there, which will again enable our customers to automate their processes as much as possible. And also, when it comes to roadmap itself, we have always a balanced approach where there will be modules, product feature functionalities we will be adding to the product. And then we will also be constant. The next one will be expanding our ecosystem. When I say that, integration with external systems, like for example, we sit in the middle. We enable our mechanics and managers and supervisors to perform their maintenance task day in, day out. But at the same time, we integrate with all other systems in the back end. It could be an EAM system. It could be a telematics system. It can be an IoT system. We go out and bring all these systems together so that end of the day, the mechanics, technicians, and managers can take their decisions and perform the maintenance task. And last but not the least, the introducing new capabilities like tire module that we are doing today. Again, we listen to our customers and prospects, and we add it accordingly. To cut the long story short, our revision from day one remains the same. Make the crew life easier, give back the time to them so that they can perform their actual maintenance task that they are going to do, and also help the management on monitoring the activities, knowing what is going on, even by division and all those things, so that they can take their decision appropriately. Go ahead, Evan.
Great.
Okay,
So
that
these,
that
go ahead.
go ahead, Evan. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, these are the three things shipping today, but please take it away, Prabu.
Thanks. Like I mentioned, tire modules, right? Now, we have been doing these tire inspections along with the PM inspections we have been doing with all our customers. But very recently visited one of our customers, and they mentioned that the highest consumable item, right, that they spend on a truck and a trailer is tire, uh, which is like they spend what 36 to 48K when they try to change all the tires. Even if I remember right, I
Yes,
think that's
correct.
what they were mentioning. So, you know, in parallel, we were also, thinking it through where when it comes to capturing the tire data, right, it is so cumbersome, so confusing, right? A user has to think, okay, am I entering the right side tire? Am I entering the left side tire? Am I entering the inner tire, outer, things like that, right? So we thought we should represent it better. And also based on the maintenance cost associated with it, we thought it is a candidate for a dedicated module where it has its own set of data collection screens and analytics and reporting on top of it. So that is basically tire module. Again, we'll show some screenshots through the webinar itself, but again, that's the tire module. The next is ISAC integration, right? This we introduced very recently. Already we connect with Samsara, Verizon, GoMotive, Geotab, all these other BlackBerry, all these other platforms. But very recently we introduced ISAC integration, and especially with ISAC, we are doing DVIRs, which is a closed loop kind of a cycle where a driver reports his issues inside ISAC. We pick it up, we give it to the mechanic, it goes back and updates. Again, we'll talk about it a little later in detail. So ISAC integration we did. And last but not the least, pinpoint. The iBot itself, we call it as pinpoint and iBot, right? So we call it as iBot pinpoint. iBot itself is a framework that we are coming up with for our AI-based, technology. Like in the sense, again, it goes back to what I told earlier. We don't do anything for the sake of technology unless there is a value add, there is a use case that comes from one of our customers or prospects or the trend from the field, right? Unless one of these demands us to do it, we don't do it for the sake of technology. Having said that, this pinpoint itself is a document like unstructured data-based AI module, which we will talk a little later. So going back in a nutshell, tires module, ISAC integration, and pinpoint are the three ones that we are going to see today.
Great. Thanks,
Go ahead.
Prabu.
Sure.
So let's take a look at the first one, which is the tires module. Tires are obviously a significant maintenance expense, probably you were just mentioning, but the information surrounding them can still be surprisingly difficult to manage. What we wanted to do here was bring that entire process into the same environment, technicians are already using. So looking at the tire map, you can immediately see every position on the vehicle and get a visual indication of its current tread status. Instead of looking through separate records or trying to piece together inspection history, you can quickly see what's good, what needs to be watched, and what may need replacement. From there, we can get into the individual tire records and start building out that life cycle history with tread readings, inspections, photos, and other information. And most importantly, we're not asking the technician to go into another application or completely change their process. They can capture this information as part of the workflow that they're already completing in iMarq. Now, from the field perspective and what I'm hearing, from multiple prospects and customers that I'm talking to, that's a pretty common situation. A technician is performing an inspection and just notices that one tire, is wearing differently than the others. Without the history and context, that can easily just become another measurement or another note that they put inside the inspection. But when you start tracking that information, position by position over time, you can begin identifying patterns. And in one position is one position consistently wearing faster? Are we replacing a particular tire more frequently than expected? Is there something happening with the vehicle, that's contributing to that wear? So now the technician isn't just recording a number, they're contributing to a life cycle record that management can actually use to make better maintenance and replacement decisions. And that's a good example of the theme, we're going to keep coming back to today, which is make the technician's process easier while giving management better information on the other side. And that same idea carries directly into the next feature we're going to show you with Isaac.
Um, Added to Evan, if you could go back to the previous slide,
Yes.
just to add to what Evan has already mentioned, right? So we have established that tire is the most expensive item or one of the expensive items. Now it needs tracking and everything. Now from the user experience, when I say user experience, not the driver, but the person who is collecting this data, right? From his perspective, how he is going to envision or how he is going to visualize this tire data collection itself, right? See, apart when you get into the tires life and the limits and the conditions and all those things, tire is one of the item. It is standardized in the market where up to six of the tire depth, right, which is 30 seconds, is good. They can still use it. When it hits four, it's at warning level. When it is two, they have to change it, right? Think about this. Truck carrying time sensitive load, it just pulls over on the side of the road where the tire is burst, right? You don't want to have that situation. So this tire itself is so much standardized. We thought we should come up with this kind of a representation where, like I mentioned earlier, the user it's easy for the mechanics and technicians to collect the data. Like, for example, when they see the screen, they will know here is my right side, here is my left side, here is my front, here is my rear, first axle, second axle, drive axle. All those things are represented pictorially, right? And on top of it, you click on one single box there, it'll come back and ask for, say, enter your 30 seconds, which is the tire depth, and then enter your PSI, which is the tire pressure, and also add some additional comments if you want to. And also on top of it, you can add pictures. Pictures makes big difference when it comes to these tire reports, which we are, again, even today we have it, but it is in a different shape and form. Now we are standardizing it in such a way that all information is available in a way where analytics and reporting can be done and trend analysis can be done on top of it. Now, pictures, why it is important? If there is a crack on the sidewall of the tire, in spite of it having a tire depth of 6, they have to change the tire, right? Because the crack on the sidewall is pretty dangerous. Now, things like that are uneven wear on the tire needs tire balancing, or maybe they have to change the tire because it is uneven. Whatever they come back with, right? So all those things can be the decision can be made easier by looking at the picture. So to cut the long story short, we are planning to come up with the color codings, pictorial representation of the tire, positioning itself, so that when the data is being collected, it's not misrepresented. Think about this. If it is in the form of rows and if it is like set of fields they are entering, say they enter the tire depth of the right side tire in place of left side tire, there is no way for us to go back and verify it, right? Now, when we are representing this pictorially like this, it becomes easier for the person who is collecting the data. Again, all this AI and analytics and reporting, everything that we talk, the accuracy of it is dependent on how accurate the data that has been collected, right? So we want to make sure it is user friendly enough so that the mechanics and technicians can enter their data easily using our mobile app. Go ahead, Evan.
Absolutely. So moving into the next slide here, we have the iSaac integration. Do you want to speak on that first and then?
Yes, yes. So again, like I mentioned earlier, right? This is a closed loop integration that we have done, where when the drivers take out their or take their trucks and trailers to the road, it's DOT mandate where DVAR, driver vehicle inspection report, should have been done, and it should not have any major issues. There could be some minor issues which they have major, minor, and there is one more low level this thing. So those types of reports they create. What we do is, from the product side of things, we keep monitoring for DVARs from iSaac. There is a scheduler that is running. We used standard APIs from iSaac. I should mention, iSaac's APIs are so clean and easy to work with. So again, we go ahead and grab those DVARs. We create maintenance work orders in our system, where those work orders gets assigned to mechanics and technicians who are going to fix that issue. And then once they fix it, when they complete it, it will go back and update the DVAR saying that this issue is taken care. Now, here is the key. Additional information that we collect is related, the comments related to the fix they have done, and then the images associated with the fix they have done. So this becomes a foolproof mechanism where even if a DOT inspector pulls the truck on the side, they will be able to see the actual issue has been fixed, and there is images for proof, and there is also comments for proof. And also in later stage, right? Once we get data, like for example, in iMarq, there is 10-year worth of data. So we are working with our customers on coming up with analytics and reportings so much nowadays, where the decision from the management side becomes easier, right? Now, having said that, all this information that is available inside our system can be used for analytics and reporting in future. Now, having said that, this release we are doing iSaac, we are already have done with Geotab, Samsara, GoMotive, all these other telematics devices out there. Evan?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and this is something that comes up quite a bit when I talk with fleets. The individual steps themselves aren't necessarily complicated. A driver identifies a defect, someone communicates it to the shop creates the work order, and a technician fixes it. The problem is everything that can happen in between those steps, right? Maybe the driver gets distracted, makes a phone call. Maybe someone writes it down. Maybe there's a paper DVIR involved, right? Then somebody else has to manually create that work order. Every handoff creates another opportunity for something to get delayed or even lost. And from the management side, even if the repair gets completed, you may still have to go back afterward and kind of piece together what happened and when it happened. When was the defect reported? Who received it? When did the technician get it? And what did they do? What was actually resolved? That's the gap that we're essentially trying to eliminate with this integration, right? And honestly, Prabu, you can probably show them what that looks like in the next slide here too, once they're integrated fully.
Yeah, again, I kind of touched upon this whole process in the earlier slide itself. The driver logs into iSaac and creates a DVAR. iMarq creates a work order, and then technician completes the job. and then status syncs back to the system. So it's like Evan told, right? It's a pretty straightforward process flow. But in this, the key here is these two systems should work hand in hand. There should not be any delays. Remember, we are talking trucks and trailers. If they don't go out, the revenue for the company is going down. So it's very sensitive from that aspect of things, right? So it should be timely. There should not be the basically two systems should work together synchronously, right? So the value add here is again, when the work order gets created within our system, they can add the labor hours associated with it, the parts consumed associated with it, and like I mentioned earlier, additional commands and images associated with it. That way, it becomes that transaction becomes has enough information so that we can run analytics and reporting in future, so that the assets are maintained better. Good, Evan.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, just kind of think about what happens in this scenario, right? Like you just mentioned, all these steps are pretty straightforward, right? Identify the defect, it automatically creates the work for the technician, they complete the repair, they capture the labor, the parts in the photos, the sign-offs, and other information associated with it. And then the status goes right back through the system. But nobody had to make a phone call to relay the defect. Nobody had to manually recreate the same information somewhere else, and management doesn't have to reconstruct the history afterward. The record is created simply by everyone doing their normal part of the process, and that's particularly important when you start talking about compliance and audit readiness, like you just mentioned. And instead of compliance becoming just another administrative exercise after the work is completed, the audit trail becomes a byproduct of doing the work correctly in the first place.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
a much more scalable way to manage maintenance.
Yep.
So now we're going to shift the conversation just a little bit. We've shown you two very practical examples of what we're shipping out today. But the last part of this release kind of brings us into a much bigger conversation around AI. Obviously, AI is everywhere right now. Every software company is talking about it, and there is no shortage of new AI features entering the market. But for us, the question has never been, where can we add AI, right? The question is, where can AI actually make maintenance better? And because the technician doesn't need AI simply for the sake of having AI, they need the right information faster, right? The manager doesn't need another dashboard because it happens to have AI attached to it. They need better visibility and information they can actually act on. So before we get into the last piece that we're releasing, I want to hand this over to Prabu because this next part is really his to tell. So Prabu, I'll let you talk about how we think about AI at Connixt and why we're approaching it this way.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this goes back to our roadmap philosophy that we have been, discussing, right? Now, AI is built in, not bolted on. We are true to that when we say that, right? Yes, we'll be using AI frameworks out there. We'll be using the platforms, all those things, but it'll be inbuilt into the product. It's not just going to be a bolted on one. Now, having said that, even before getting there, right? Does AI make sense? I should go back before we introduced AI, right? Like what the first two modules we introduced like a year ago. Yeah, a year and a half ago. Before that, we spent couple years, 2 years. Everybody was talking AI. There was even pressure on our side to go back and talk something about AI, but we did not do that. Again, this goes back to we don't do anything for the sake of technology unless there is a value add, unless the customer benefits out of it. We are not going to introduce anything in our product. See, end of the day, the customer pays for it. There should be an ROI to it, right? what is the point in having a product there and not getting any benefits out of it? So we are very sincere to it, right? Now we took a couple years, we came up with the use cases. Of course those use cases have evolved much more with all the new technologies that are available out there. But having said that, we already released a couple modules when it comes to iBot, which is AI based framework. One is Ask Me, which again, I think we have a webinar related to that we did long back, which is like a technician can ask a question and it goes and gets answers from the outside world, like for example, ChatGPT or Gemini, all these other platforms out there, right? It goes and gets. We also introduced AI by using Azure's Translate, where we can translate from any language to any language for comments and the data that has been entered. They can speak in Spanish, we convert it to English and then store it and things like that, right? So already a couple modules have been introduced. Now we are coming up with these new modules where it is going to help our customers in querying against their own data. So far, we have been relying on outside data. Now we are going to rely on their own data. When I say their own data, of course, we are going to talk about pinpoint. One is querying against unstructured data, and then eventually querying against structured data. So these are all the things that we are having as part of our roadmap. And again, we are not doing it for the sake of technology. We are doing it because we know that there is a need there. We have tested the waters and we know that it will be helpful for our customers. And we'll talk about it a little later about the functionality and everything in the next set of slides. I don't want to talk about it now, Evan. So, I want to wait for that appropriate slide. So,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to move on here.
yes.
So one assistant built for everyone it touches. Please take it away.
Yeah. This is again, I'll tell you the use case behind it, right? Which is from one of our customers. Now, we call it as iBot pinpoint. I think it should come a little later. But it is basically this, right? There are so many work instructions and manuals, OEM manuals, things like that are available at a customer's place where today, as of today, right? If a mechanic wants an answer, of course, they can use our Ask Me module and get the answer from the outside world. But the customers that we deal with, there are customers who are out there who don't want to rely on the knowledge that is outside there because they have come up with their own procedures that they have within their space, right? So there are this model specific OEM manuals, electrical diagrams, their own work instructions and things like that, right? Parts catalog and things like that. So what we are coming up with is it's called the pinpoint, where this will be a module where a technician asks a question in normal English to that, and then it gets the answers, whatever that question corresponds to. Not only gets the answers, it's retrieval augmented, right? Which is like it'll also tell where it got that answer from. Remember, when it comes to AIs and agents, it starts thinking on its own beyond a point, right? We don't want that. There will be guidelines in place and things like that. So, to cut the long story short, there will be one assistant that will be available there, which will query against your set of documents, work instructions, OEM manuals that is out there, or with set of structured data that we have in our own database. Go ahead, Evan.
Absolutely. So quickly moving on. Before we show you what that looks like in practice, I want to take a second to highlight something that we're especially proud of. Connixt was actually recognized as of today in the 2026 Progressive Railroading Reader's Choice Awards, taking home awards in two categories. One is artificial intelligence, and the other was existing product with new features. For us, the recognition is especially meaningful because it reinforces a lot of what Prabu was just talking about. We're not pursuing AI simply because it's the latest tech. We're focused on finding practical ways to apply it to the work maintenance teams are already doing And I think the next feature, which is Pinpoint, that we're going to show you is a great example of exactly that. So Prabhu, let's take a look at Pinpoint.
Yes. Now, like I mentioned earlier, right? So we maintain or we store all the asset data, right? That is available, that is made available to us in our own database. So when there is a truck that is like in this case, right? Truck 142, we know what is the make of the truck and what is the model the truck is. And then based on that, when a mechanic asks a question related to any instructions associated with that specific asset, instead of a truck, think about an electric bus, a CNG bus, where they have to maintain, right? There are so many, of course, for a experienced mechanic, right? He may know everything, right? From the overall instruction wise, overall procedure wise, he may know. Think about how much should be the torque level when I am tightening my brake shoes, right? Brake torque, they call it, right? What is that number? For an individual to remember that will be little tough. I'm not saying nobody is going to remember it, but it will be a little tough. Instead, for a foolproof mechanism, right? They can come here, ask that question saying that, hey, this is the truck that I'm going to maintain. What should be my torque levels when I am tightening my brake chambers, right? Or wheel nuts, tightening the wheel nuts, everybody knows. I'm not getting that, but brake chambers, oil filters, and things like that, right? Now, those instructions will be there in the OEM manuals, which this product that we are coming up with, this module that we are coming up with, will go into all these manuals out there. It will grab that answer for that specific question and then comes back and answers to the user saying that, hey, for this model, these are all the torque levels, and here are the links associated with it where I got that answer from. That way, the user is confident enough that it has gotten the answer from the right location. So that is about Pinpoint, where there is a set of OEM manuals that is available within our system provided to us by our customers, where a mechanic or a technician can ask a question in normal English and then get it answered, so that he doesn't go through the manager's room, go through the binders, and then locate the answer and then go back and fix the truck. It's again time consuming. Go ahead, Evan.
Absolutely. So everything
The
that you were
next
just
one also.
mentioning, yeah,
Oh,
flies right
sorry.
into this. Go ahead.
Yeah, just good. The next one also kind of goes back to not a guess, right? We are very sensitive to it because we are hearing stories out there where it starts thinking on their own and then starts guiding. When I say it's AI. So we don't want to fall under that category. So we always come up with provisions where we got that answer from. That's the key to us, and that's again data integrity, right? It goes back to integrity. So that's what we are concentrating on. A grounded answer, not a guess. That's the key here. Go ahead, Evan.
Yep. And that's probably one of the easiest use cases to relate back to the real world and what I talk to, prospects about every day. Think about a technician, like you were just mentioning, who needs a specific piece of information to finish a job. Maybe it's the torque specification, maybe it's procedure or a part number or a service bulletin. They may know exactly what they're looking for. The problem is finding it.
Yeah.
Maybe the answer is buried somewhere in a binder. Maybe there's a PDF sitting on a shared drive, like we've seen, multiple times. Maybe it's inside a 400-page, workshop manual. The technician isn't struggling because they don't know how to do their job. They're losing time because the information they need isn't easy to access at the moment they need it. And that's what I think is so important about what Prabu has been talking about, right? Pinpoint isn't simply asking a generic AI model for an answer. It's looking at your documentation for this asset and this job
Yeah.
and bringing that relevant information directly to the technician. So instead of asking, what does AI think the answer is? We're asking, what does our own documentation say the answer is? And then we're giving the technician the ability to verify it. That's a very different and much more practical way to think about AI in maintenance?
Yes. Again, just to re-emphasize, this is the first module that we are coming up with, which is going against the documentation that is available. The next one, eventually it will be against the structured data, which will be from the maintenance records itself. Now, this next one, next slide also, we kind of touched upon this, which is verifying the source itself, right, in seconds, where the links will be there in place, where you will be able to know, you click on it, it will take you to the appropriate section of the documentation itself. Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, and I think the ability to verify the answer is really what completes this process. We're not asking a technician to blindly trust something simply because AI generated it. They can go directly to the source, see the page and the paragraph the answer came from, and confirm it themselves. For maintenance teams where accuracy, safety, and compliance matter, that's an important distinction right there. So if we take a step back and look at everything we've shown today, there are three very different capabilities. First is the tire module, and I don't know if you want to add anything else on top of what we've already discussed.
No, we pretty much covered, Evan.
Okay. And with tires, we're giving the technician a better way to really capture what's happening position by position while giving management life cycle visibility they can actually plan around. The next up, obviously with iMarq, we're eliminating those manual handoffs between the road and the shop and really creating the record automatically as the work gets done. And then, of course, with Pinpoint, we're taking information that organizations already have and making it available to the technician at the moment they actually need it. Three different features, but really one idea, right? Remove friction from the maintenance process. We're not asking people to completely change the way they work. We're trying to take the work they're already doing and make it faster, easier, more connected, and of course, more visible. And ultimately, that's what we mean when we say smart maintenance built for the shop floor.
Which goes back to our tagline, smarter, simpler, smarter, faster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right, with that, we'd love to open things up and kind of hear from anyone out there. And if you have questions about anything we've shown today, whether it's the tires module, iMarq integration, Pinpoint, iBot, or even something more general about iMarq, please feel free to throw those questions into the chat, and Prabu and I will work through as many as we can. Open this Q&A here really quick. Perfect. Oh, I do see one here. Hey, Prabu, maybe we can start with this iMarq for an existing fleet already using iMarq. What does the typical integration and setup process look like?
Um, it's again dependent on the scope, but anywhere from I think it should be 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we should be able to integrate. Again, it's dependent on the scope of the use case. I'll little bit elaborate on that, right? Now, in case of one of our customers, we did DVAR, right? We can also do engine light based, work order creation, where when there is an engine light, say there is a P0203 code, which is a fuel injector circuit issue, right? If that is there, then picking it up and then creating a work order. That's one more process. The other process which we do for one of our other customers is every 20K, we keep track of mileage on these devices. And then every 20K, we create a service and a B service and a C service. So, and we are talking about iMarq today. If there is a new if there is some other telematics platform that you are using, all these companies out there, they are very good in providing the API layers. So we will be able to connect with it and implement all these processes. So to answer your question, Evan, couple weeks.
Got it. Okay. Great. Oh, here's one with Pinpoint. Does this only work with manufacturer manuals, or can customers bring in their own internal SOPs and documentation as well?
Any documentation.
Yeah.
It's not just the manuals. Again, whatever customer provides, we will get it. We will index, we'll create an database with that. Means from the AI platform perspective, we will go ahead and import it and then go with it. So that answer your question, any documentation that they want us
Yep.
to add it to.
Great. And in regards to the tires module, is this primarily designated for fleet customers initially, or do we see applications for this across some of the other industries we support?
Oh, that's a good one. It goes back to our, see, when it comes to iMarq, right, it's a configurable product. One single code base across verticals. Utility customers use us. Logistics customers are using us. Public transit companies are using us. So it's one single code base. It's a configurable product. Having said that, this tires module will also be configurable. Any equipment with a tire, it is applicable. It has to
Oh,
be
I love.
the minimum requirement is it has to have a tire. So that's it.
Understood. Understood. Oh, and one more here. So I guess this one can be directed towards you, and we may have touched on this briefly throughout the webinar. With so many potential applications for AI right now, how do we decide which AI capabilities are actually worth building into iMarq, and which ones do we skip?
It again goes back to value add. That's a key. We breathe in. We breathe that day in, day out. And also, see, we have amazing set of customers with us. I should tell you this. Whenever these kinds of interests come in from a prospect or from the outside world or from the technology trend perspective, we take these messages, apply it from our product perspective. Again, it goes back to organic growth, right? We are very true to that also, right? And we go and talk to our customers, talk to our prospects. They don't need to buy from us, but we'll at least, ask them, hey, does it make sense? This is what we are planning. Is it really useful? So many times, I'm telling you, our customers are king. Our customers are king. So they really help us in designing some of these product roadmap items. So to cut the long story short, we take it, brainstorm it, and then there are so many scenarios we skipped actually. I don't want to go through it, but again, that's why we took 2 years to even introduce AI. Now there are use cases which we know our customers are going to use it.
Absolutely agree. Even when I go on site and visit customers too, it's really nice to see it and hear it and kind of feel it in their environment and understand, what's important and how we
In
can
fact,
apply it.
sorry to barge in. Evan, if you
No,
remember our
please.
last conversation, one customer told, hey, what if the mechanic is asking the same question on a daily basis? I'm not going to pay the token for that, right? So that was a good one. So we go that deep. Our customers get involved in our
Absolutely.
conversations that deep. So yeah, that answers it all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wrap this up. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it up. Prabu, thank you for joining me today, and thank you to everyone who took the time to attend. We hope today's webinar gave you a better look, not only at what's new in iMarq summer release, but also where we're taking the platform, moving forward. The recording and additional release resources will be available on the Connixt website, so I encourage you all to check it out there following the webinar. And if something you saw today stood out to you, we'd be happy to take the next step, show you what it could look like within your own operation. We can sit down with your team, look at the maintenance processes you're using today, and walk through how iMarq can fit into these workflows. So please feel free to reach out to us and book some time with the team. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to speak with you again soon.
Nice meeting you all again. Thank you.